digital migrants. These are the challenges that we need to understand. With all of this put together, it's not enough that we have a lecture. Teachers have to work towards making a lecture into a learning event. And maybe I use this term event because I come from my foundation of my early career is to do with events. But yes, it needs to be an event. It cannot be a situation where lectures are taken. But what about the transaction of education? There was no learning transaction that took place. Somebody lectured, somebody listened, thank you. There was no learning. There was no interest. Maybe the learners did not learn. Learners, most importantly, did not even think how to learn. And everything that the teacher spoke in that lecture was opened up and pushed into them as data, which they are just not able to crunch, because apparently their processors are not geared up for it. So with all of these challenges, the teacher of today has to ensure that a teaching event is not a lecture anymore. It has to be an event, whether it is interaction or whatever. I have nothing to do with science. I have nothing to do with physics. But still, just to seem very educated and smart in front of you, I'm trying to bring some comparisons with the Newton's law of motions. And we all know Newton's first law, second law, and third law. And what we've tried doing, because I am not a physics student, I'll probably land up reading with you. But what does Newton's first law say? An object at rest will remain at rest unless acted upon an unbalanced force. Let's try and bring it down to learning. A learner will remain ignorant in the absence of an encouraging learning intervention. I'm closing my gap to Newton, so I'll probably be the Newton of education. An object in motion continues in motion with the same speed and in the same direction unless acted upon an unbalanced force. A motivated learner continues to learn until demotivated by an unpleasant learning experience. And now you know why I was so averse to learning. Every time I wanted to learn, I got into a phase of demotivation because of unpleasant learning experience. And my unpleasant learning experience was 8 out of 100, 21 out of 100. I needed 85, 90 out of 100 to be motivated. My teachers were demotivated teachers themselves. This law is often called the law of inertia, and Newton's first law is called law of inertia. This is the principle of learning inertia, or a learner resistance in the other word. Let's analyze what Newton's second law said. Acceleration is produced when a force acts on a mass. A pleasant and inspiring learning intervention accelerates the speed of learning. The greater the mass, the greater the amount of force required. The greater the learner inertia or resistance, the more is the strength required or the intervention required by the teachers. So now very nicely, we as students, we are trying to push it back to the teachers that the teachers have to apply greater force onto the students to see that learning takes place. And the third law, to every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. In every learning interaction, both the learner and the teacher learns something. This means that for every force, there is a reactionary force that is equal in size but opposite in direction. The learning transaction affects both learners and teachers, thus co-constructing learning. Normally we see the teacher and the learner going in different directions. We have equal and opposite reaction. learning doesn't take place. And I'm sure if my English cum physics teacher were here present, they would have decided to regrade me. Teacher training, and probably one of my last points is the training and the continuous professional development in school, in institutions, need to be planned with a vision, and it has to be part of a long-term plan. We cannot have something for the next 3 months to see that my board results increase or are better. They have to be relevant to the current roles and immediate future plans of the school and the academic requirement that the school wants to benchmark itself to. It has to be delivered by experts with relevant knowledge and expertise in their area with practical hands-on knowledge. We cannot be a situation where, as Professor Pang mentioned in the morning, have a person who needs to talk about team building, unfortunately cannot go well with anyone. We cannot have that. We need to have experts with practical knowledge. It has to be based on evidence to date. We have to ensure that adequate support, mentoring, guidance, which is ongoing to the teaching community, is to be provided.